You're on Swing Shift with Pat Gardner. It's a couple of minutes past 7. Quite some time ago, I played on Swing Shift a recording of a performance that West Australian clarinet virtuoso Jack Harrison gave at the Capitol Theatre nearly 50 years ago. When I played Jack's rendition of Blue Rhapsody, I mentioned that he thought he might be able to come up with some more vintage Perth jazz that he was involved with. Well, that has happened, I'm happy to say, and tonight I'll present the first of 2 or 3 short features on Jack and the fairly early Perth jazz scene. Most of the material we'll hear tonight has, unfortunately, well and truly suffered the ravages of time, and on an occasion fire, I believe, but its historical and jazz interest overrides all that, I'm sure you'll agree. Well, Jack was born right here in Perth, and by about age 4 was already interested in music. He was given a mouth organ, actually, which he didn't regard simply as a toy. He began studying music in earnest at age 5 and couldn't possibly have imagined that he would record a set of not only harmonica, but also clarinet masterpieces with the West Australian Symphony Orchestra some 50 years later. But let's not jump the gun. Here's Jack, at about age 8, well and truly confident and proficient enough to offer himself as a contestant on stage in front of a highly supportive audience. You'll have to listen carefully, however, to get what's going on.
There, here he is. Now, what are you going to play, Jack? What's up? Quiet, please. Now, what are you going to play, Jack? Plenty of Money in You. Well, you stuck the right title, too. Plenty of Money in You. Well, now, that's the title. Plenty of Money in You, played by Master Jack Harrison.
Well, I can tell you what, the crowd cheered and cheered there, and Jack had to do an encore, and I'm not too sure Jack wanted me to play that one tonight, but that was about the earliest piece that I could find from what he made available to me, and I think it was nice to set the stage, really, wasn't it, with Jack? As a little boy, you could hardly hear his voice when he was announcing what he was going to play, Plenty of Money in You. Well, that performance of that number and others like it led to Jack's appearance on Sydney radio station 2GB's youth show when he was still only 9. perhaps the next year after that recording was made at whatever that live performance was. And on this second occasion, he played an even more spirited rendition of the same number, Plenty of Money in You. Here's just the part which I think suggests Jack's potential as a jazz musician, even at that very early age. There we heard Jack with a second performance, and in fact he played that quite a few times apparently back in those days. Well, Jack began studying piano, and within a few years clarinet and saxophone as well. He was fortunate to have a sister, Jill, a twin sister in fact, who could play piano, and an older brother, Ray, who played drums. And when they got together, Jack and Jill only aged 15 and Ray 17, this was the sort of thing that they were into. A couple of 15-year-olds and a 17-year-old doing a swing and jazz sort of a trio there with the Darktown Strutters Ball. And another number by just the same trio, Who? Doing a bit of a Benny Goodman trio sort of an act there were Jack Harrison and Jill Harrison, Jack and Jill, the two 15-year-olds, and Ray, the drummer. Well, at about this stage, Jack formed an actual band. Jill and Ray still played piano and drums, respectively. Jack played clarinet and alto sax, and George Franklin played trumpet, Bill Hendry guitar, and it was probably Ralph Filmer on bass, Jack tells me. When Jack was only 16 with this band, he was put forward as the youngest professional band leader in Australia.
We're presenting tonight the lad who we claim is the youngest band leader in Australia. Jack Harrison, who has already appeared in national fair as a soloist, is just 16 years of age. When did you first get interested in music, Jack?
Well, I started playing the mouth organ when I was 4 years of age.
Which is some time ago, eh?
Yes, a few years later I learnt to play the sax and the clarinet.
And very well you play them too. Now, when did you get the idea of forming a band?
Well, my brother's a pretty hot drummer and my sister a fairly good pianist, so we got together.
I see. And is the band still a purely family affair?
Oh, no, we've added the trumpet, guitar and bass now.
And the band is fully professional, Jack?
Yes, fully professional.
I see. And you get a lot of fun out of it?
Yes, a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the perfect job, isn't it? Getting paid for something that's fun to do. Thank you very much, Jack. And Mr. Ringmaster, let the other states start looking for a younger band leader than Western Australia's 16-year-old Jack Harrison. Now, here's his band going to town in Softly as in a Morning Sunrise.
Jack Harrison there, and we'll say more about Jack in a moment.
This month's great deal at Liquor Barons Bentley are the Oxford Landing range of wines for only $5.99 a bottle. That's $2 off the normal price. And Emu Export Stubbies at only $24.99 a carton. Our sponsors, Liquor Barons Bentley, are located at 107 Manning Road, Bentley. And by the way, they deliver.
Commercial Kitchen Revival specialise in providing floor-to-roof care for your restaurant, cafe or lunch bar. Maintain a healthy food preparation environment. Call Gordon for a free quote and professional advice on how he can quickly and effectively solve all your maintenance problems. Cleaning and general repairs, installation of fittings, pest control, painting and plumbing, and electrical services in a jiffy with our sponsor Commercial Kitchen Revivals. Call 015 087 555. Commercial Kitchen Revivals, 015 087 555.
You're on Curtin's 927 6NR, Swing Shifters, the show, and we're delving back into the past now with Jack Harrison from, well, up till now anyway, the 1940s. We will be hearing from Jack in ensuing weeks from the 1950s and even into the 1960s. And we've had some feedback from this. Thanks very much for your call, Dennis Foster. It's really great to know that you remember Jack very well and happily out there. Dennis said that Jack played at his wedding, and Jack has some material apparently on tape, which he'll allow us to play here on 6NR. So there's something else that you're going to hear from Jack Harrison, probably on one of these other little features that I'll be presenting to you 3 weeks' time and 6 weeks' time, respectively, from now. Thanks also John Gilfer from Floriat, who's enjoying the show. And we've had some inquiries about how old you were, Jack, when you were playing all this sort of stuff. And Jack was still a youngster at this stage, only really in his teens. Well, by the end of the 1940s, Jack was well and truly in demand and often played in concerts, as, for example, at the Capitol Theatre. And as I said on a previous occasion, well-deserved applause on that one as Jack Harrison played Blue Rhapsody at the Capitol Theatre with Harry Bluck and his orchestra. I did mention that earlier tonight. That was the prompter, I suppose, for what we're doing tonight in this extra special little feature on Jack Harrison. That was the one that I played some time ago. And at the time I mentioned that I wondered whether Jack had composed that himself. He said, oh, no way. He said that was a pretty well standard sort of an arrangement. And, of course, I found out since that it was one of the recorded versions of it from America was played by the Casaloma Orchestra. In fact, that may have been the only one, and the clarinetist on that one was Fats Daniel, and I've listened to that one since, by the way. I had forgotten that I had it in my collection. It was, in fact, released here on a Decca 78, and another version of it, almost the same, has been released from a transcription. And I can assure Jack that his clarinet playing is, well, I won't say every bit as good. It's better. It is honestly very much better than I suppose you could call the original performance of it, a Bill Challis chart, that one. In any case, Jack, you've stirred up a little bit of memory here for quite a few persons, people ringing up saying that they, well, as Dennis said, had you played his wedding, others remember you well, Ernie and Judy Frey, or F-R-E-Y, Fry, in Noranda. They've let us know that they know Jack and Marcia personally, and that they say this is a great show on account of us playing music by you, Jack, and Jack is a beaut person. How about that? Well, now we come to the end of the feature that we're playing tonight. I suppose I could have gone on, but I decided to break it up into three parts, and we've heard Jack now from the 1940s, when he was just in his teens, and when I'm back in 3 weeks' time, I'll move into the 1950s with some more material from Jack Harrison, and it gets cooler and always up to date, Jack. Never just living in the past. Jack, of course, very well known on the classical music scene here. We won't be playing any of his music from that, although we will, at the culmination of these three little features, play Jack with the West Australian Symphony Orchestra, but he'll be playing some rather remarkable things that you will have heard by artists like Artie Shaw and Woody Herman. So that's the end of the first of these three short features on Jack Harrison. I'm glad those of you who remember Jack so well have rung in and let us know, and we may be able to pick up some additional material besides that which Jack has been able to make available from Dennis Foster. In the meantime, here's going back to just ordinary sort of stuff, something from Tommy Dorsey and his orchestra. You're on Curtains 927 6NR. The time is 7 minutes past 7, and the program is Swing Shift. And we hear now a few more items from Perth's own Jack Harrison, following those I played at this time 3 weeks ago. Well, we were nearing the end of the 1940s at that stage, when in America, and inevitably elsewhere, swing sounds were changing from those made by big bands to perhaps more subtle sounds made by smaller groups. Whereas Jack seemed so far to have been influenced by the likes of Benny Goodman and perhaps particularly Artie Shaw, he now adopted more of a George Shearing style, and this entailed adding another instrument to the several that he already played. The new one was the vibraphone, as you'll hear. was that for a beautiful laid-back version of For You, played by Jack Harrison. We heard him on Vibes there. That was, of course, at the Capitol Theatre and in front of an obviously appreciative audience. His sister Jill was at the piano, and Jack and Jill's brother, Ray, was on the drums. Ralph Filmer was on bass. At the Capitol Theatre, probably right towards the end of the 1940s, I would say, sort of around about the turn of the decade. Not all that they played, of course, was quite as soft-sounding as that one. Here we hear them going on for I Want to Be Happy, and Jack hadn't, of course, abandoned his clarinet. You'll hear him on clarinet in this one. Great vintage jazz from right here in Perth, Western Australia, at the Capitol Theatre. Jack Harrison, well known, of course, not only on the jazz scene, but in the classics as well. Many years associated with the West Australian Symphony Orchestra, and I think his whole family was very musical. Jack, of course, played both vibes and the clarinet on that. He certainly hadn't abandoned his clarinet just because he'd learnt a new instrument. I don't know whether we'd call that a quartet or a quintet or what, but certainly there were 5 instruments there, weren't there? Well, apart from live performances, Jack from time to time had an item or two put down on record, which of course is very lucky for us. Here he is using a recording service he seems to remember in Howard Street, Perth, in the very early 1950s. September in the Rain, and it wasn't Jack Harrison, of course, who hesitated at the beginning of that. It was something that I did here that caused the little bit of a pause before we heard Jack playing clarinet, Billy Close piano, and John Mosen on bass. And that one, as I said, was especially recorded, perhaps for posterity like us here tonight. Well, let's not have any more pauses. A technical advance in the form of tape recording came to be in the 1950s. And Jack Harrison was keen to both explore, I suppose, and exploit this new way of recording, which allowed overdubbing much more easily than disc recording did. The equipment Jack had at his disposal at the time was quite up to date, but of course very primitive in today's terms. Multitracking on the one tape wasn't possible, so Jack had to go back and forth between two tape machines as many as 9 or 10 times. Listen carefully to The Lady is a Tramp, and be assured that the 4 saxophones you hear as a section, the 2 clarinets, the vibraphone, the harmonica, and the piano and the drums are all played by one and the same Jack Harrison. one guy there, Jack Harrison, playing saxophone 4 times actually, clarinet twice, and playing also vibes, harmonica. Harmonica started it off, didn't it? And piano and drums as well. Way back in the 1950s, when doing that sort of thing wouldn't have been all that easy, but Jack was always interested in moving forward and was experimenting with those sorts of things, even on, as I say, what would in these days terms be fairly primitive sort of equipment back then. Well, that brings us to the end of our part 2, actually, of Jack Harrison. We'll be returning to him for a part 3 next time, and we'll hear actually another famous Harrison when we move into the 1960s. We leave Jack in the 1950s. In 3 weeks' time, when we come back, we'll have some more from him. And besides 1960s music then, jazz, will interestingly move into the 1980s, when, in a way, Jack returned, I suppose, to his roots, the big band sounds of the 1940s, with Perth's biggest band, the West Australian Symphony Orchestra. But that's in another 3 weeks' time.